We're back. This is Mark and Michelle.
Technical difficulties.
The video cut out on us, but we're back now live again.
So Mark was talking about hearing Claire de Lune the first time from his emotionally enhanced body.
There we go. Enhanced brain. There we go. That other one is recorded though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we'll find out. We can redo that part if we have to.
So we're going to move on.
Okay.
How did you get to this place of being able to feel things?
Well, on the GAPS diet, I've been doing the GAPS diet for 4.5 years, which we talked about in previous episodes. But the GAPS, after doing it for 4.5 years, up until January of this year, I found that I kind of stagnated and I didn't notice any more major changes. And I thought, well, okay, maybe this is as far as I'm going to go. Well, we got introduced to the medical medium diet, and after doing the medical medium diet for the first 28-day detox period, I lost almost all of my heavy metals, or at least most of them. And because of the loss of the heavy metals, all of a sudden new emotional awarenesses came online, and I found that absolutely fascinating because I thought, oh, well, I'm going to heal as far as I'm going to, or I'm as far as I'm going, as far as I can. But apparently that wasn't the case. The medical medium's detox diet has taken me farther than the GAPS did. But let me give a few examples of what I mean by that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Examples of that. I'm finding now that if I've had a tense or an intense conversation with somebody and it makes me mad, as an Aspie, I could just forget it and I would never emotionally relive it. That was my experience. Now, however, I'm finding that if something reminds me of the intense conversation, the emotions that I had during the conversation or the interaction come right back up, and they're just as intense as they were when I had the original interaction. That's bizarre to me because it's so... You know this phrase saying forgive and forget. Well, now I see why it can be difficult to forgive and even more difficult to forget. If you have emotions constantly coming up reminding you of an interaction, it can be difficult to put all of that behind you. I have the tools now to do that, to do exactly that, to forgive and to forget, but emotions do make that difficult. That's one example. I'm finding that as something new to me. Let's see. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You.
Well, I just wondered if you would share how you've taken care of some of this emotional stuff.
Okay. All right. Here's a couple of the tools that I use to get rid of traumatic emotions or emotions that have kind of settled in and started housekeeping when I don't need them anymore. One of the techniques is called EFT. And Michelle and I found this back in 2009, and we've been using it ever since then. But EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique.
It's also called tapping.
It is. Some of you might know Nick Ortner. He does tapping. He's written, I think it was a bestseller book on that. And it's excellent. It is absolutely essential in healing from the traumas that you have in life. Not just from traumas that are around autism, but for any other area of your life. So what it is you basically tap on acupressure points right here on your collarbone, right on your rib cage, and then under your arm. But there's a whole protocol that goes with that that's simple, and you can get rid of emotional traumas and things that you need to have leave your life in just a few minutes time. So I use that now. Then I also have a forgiveness ritual, you might say, in my head that I use, where I take the emotion of the pain that I don't want and I put it in a lotus flower, and I walk to a river and I put it in the river and let it float away. And that helps me a lot. So that allows the pain to go and disappear, and it's permanent. Other than if there's something left in there that still reminds me of it. But those are two of the biggest tools I use, unless there's other things I'm missing.
I wondered if you could give an example of one of the first times you felt that kind of emotional pain and how bizarre it was for you.
Yes. Here's a good example. I guess it's been 6 or 8 months now, but a very strong example of this was how guilty I felt, horribly guilty I felt, over the life that I had given her for the first 18 years of our marriage. I was a difficult autistic person to live with. She had to shut down just about every part of her personality to coexist with me. And as I've healed up, I've seen glimpses of how difficult I've made it for her. Well, that's the first time I've ever felt guilt that strongly and that deeply. And I felt really bad, sick is a better word for it, over how much pain and trouble I had caused her during the first 18, 19 years of our marriage. So I had to use EFT and forgiveness over that because I didn't know any better. Being autistic, that was just how I was as an autistic person. And so I had to use both of those techniques, the EFT and the forgiveness ritual, to get rid of the pain that I felt over treating her so badly for so long.
How weird was it to wake up to that kind of pain?
It's very strange because I didn't feel that kind of emotional pain when I was autistic. And now things come up out of the blue and they really... the word emotional pain, emotional is linked with pain for a reason, because it's just as palpable a pain as a cut finger or a sprained ankle or anything else. And I didn't know it could be. I mean, for most of my life, I heard people talk about feeling bad or emotional pain or this or that, and I didn't understand the connection. Now I understand the connection between emotions and pain. But you can, on the opposite side, there have also been really good times. Feeling proud about mowing the lawn. I've never felt proud over that stuff before, up until it was probably a year and a half into the diet. And I happened to be looking out the back window, and I just mowed the lawn. And Michelle goes, "Are you feeling proud you mowed the lawn?" I'm like, "Yeah, it looks really nice." And it did look really nice. I was like, "Wow, I did a good job." That's the first time I'd ever felt proud.
And I was like, "What? What'd you just say?" Because I always had to mow the lawn before because he didn't feel that pride. It meant nothing to him.
Well, and again, while she had to mow the lawn, I just didn't have the energy to mow the lawn. But then, or the motivation, because motivation wasn't something I felt either. And so
motivation is an emotion, which means that autistic people don't have that innately.
Yeah, some may not. But most autistic people that I've encountered always talked about how they lacked motivation. And motivation is a feeling. It's a strong desire to want to do something. And I'll be honest, until I started the GAPS diet and started healing up, I did not feel a strong desire for much of anything.
Okay, let's talk about EFT in a more mundane sense. I know this week you were struggling with having bits of meat at work.
Oh, nice.
So, like, you can't have meat.
Well,
you can, but, I mean, you won't heal as fast on the medical medium diet if you have meat.
Right. The medical medium diet, for those of you who don't know, is mainly fruit and veggies. Mostly it's fruit smoothies because you're trying to heal your adrenal glands, for one. Two, you're also trying to detox your body of toxins, viruses, all kinds of other things. And so meat and starchy vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, slow that process down.
But, just to clarify, potatoes and sweet potatoes are healing.
Right.
They just slow down the detox.
Right. Thanks for the
But
clarification.
meat feeds viruses.
Okay. And the medical medium diets books all talk about this. We're not going to go into any kind of depth on this. This is just a basic, quick understanding. But I, being 4.5 years on the GAPS diet and having been a professional cook most of my life, I'm happy with meat. And I've always enjoyed pork, barbecued pork, smoked beef, chicken, pork, and, well...
Maybe some pork?
Right, and some more pork chops, pork roast.
Pork ribs.
Right, well, there you go. And...
pork tenderloin?
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
All right, enough. I'm getting hungry now. Stop that. So anyway, but I was having trouble keeping away from meat while doing the medical medium diet. Well, I used EFT to get over my strong need for meat. And so, after doing tapping on it, 3 or 4 rounds of tapping.
Describe how you did it.
Well, the tapping is this.
Say the words.
I will.
Okay.
You have a setup statement where you say, even though I crave meat, and you tap on the karate chop point right here on your hand, even though I crave meat, I deeply and completely embrace my craving now. And you do that 3 or 4 times, and then you start tapping on the acupuncture points, crown of your head, and you say, I crave meat, I crave meat, and you hold the feeling of
the
craving at the same time because you're trying to move that feeling out of you.
Yes.
So, as you tap, I crave meat, and then you tap on all the points next to your eye, under your nose, under your bottom lip, just under your collarbone, right where the joint is, then halfway down your rib cage, under your nipple, for you ladies, under your breast, and then under your arm. And so...
And how did that work for you?
The next day, I did about 3 or 4 rounds of that. The next day when I went to work, I went to test myself by going over to the barbecue bar, and because, barbecue pork, right? And so I had absolutely no connection or need or want or desire for any of that. So I went over to the hot bar, the buffet in the store, because I thought, well, maybe something over there will tempt me. I got over there, because I'm really testing this.
Right.
And I didn't even reach down and pick up anything to eat. We had battered fried cod for the British invasion set. We had a very nice meatloaf on the Northern Italian set. We had curried chicken on the Indian set. Didn't want any of it. It was so awesome to be disconnected from that craving. And I'm talking about a real physical craving for it. I disconnected myself in just a few minutes of using EFT. And I even did the forgiveness ritual that I do for continuing to want something that was, in this case, holding me back. And
we want you to know that if you're struggling with anything like that with your diets, or you are really resistant to changing your diet, we have things that can help you.
We have the tools that you need and want to get you through the stuck places of where you're at. So just get in touch with us because we can move you past that easily. All right, other questions?
Let's see. What were we talking about? Re-seeing things.
Well, we were talking about re-seeing things that made me, like intense interactions and being reminded of the intense interactions and how I feel the emotion just as strongly now as I did in the original interaction.
So one of the things that happened this week is Mark read emotion into one of the texts I sent him. That was new.
Oh, okay. Well, and what that was is we were talking about a live video we did last week.
Right, because we argue.
We argue. Oddly enough, we argued far more when I was autistic. Now our arguments, instead of being one-sided, me shutting down and walking off, or her having to shut down.
And walk off.
Right. Now our arguments are, okay, for lack of a better term, reasonable. And
it was actually an enjoyable argument.
Okay, those 2 words. Anyway.
It was totally an emotional argument. It was brand new for us.
That's true, because I could get my point across, even with the emotion of anger. I felt like she was criticizing me, but the whole point was she wasn't. She just wanted me to know why she was doing something in specific, and I had a good idea of why she was doing it, and I had my reasons for why I was doing what I was doing, and we got those across without reaction and without shutting down, which actually that is a milestone.
It is a milestone.
Yeah. Okay, that's a milestone.
It's a milestone.
High five for the milestone.
Five. Okay. And it was actually satisfying because we had conclusions. We came to an understanding and a conclusion.
That's true, we did.
And that's just never happened.
No, because we generally let it trail off and just I apologize for my emotions.
Accept whatever it was, but this time there was a conclusion, and that was cool.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Well, do we want to talk about the next thing as well, because it's linked, I think, with this, the emotional sensitivity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
What I'm finding is, and Michelle told me this when we first got my diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. She says every word, or almost every word, contains emotion.
Right, and I used the example of a folder. Because if it has cute kitties on it, you're going to feel for that folder. But he didn't get it.
Well, I get it now.
He gets it now.
You develop an immediate attachment to the folder, even though it's been anthropomorphized or animalized with kitties on it. So that makes sense now. I'm this past week or past 2 weeks, I've started feeling emotions attached to almost every word in what someone says to me. That's unusual, because up until this past week or two, I would only get emotions if they were intense from someone. But now, especially with Michelle, since I know her so well, just about everything she says carries emotion. Now, she's also an empath too, so that adds to it.
But I've always been this way. He's the one waking up.
So here I am waking up, and I realized that the text that you sent me the other day was probably that. Now, it might have been my own emotion as well, reading that into what you were saying, but now I'm hearing, seeing, feeling more in more words and in more sentences. So we are better able to communicate now than we have ever been able to communicate.
Well, it's a two-way street now.
Well,
it was a one-way street before.
True. The words just hit me and then hit the ground like hitting a brick wall.
Yes.
So I get that. And I know a lot of you mothers out there with kids on the spectrum know exactly what that's like. You try to get your kid to do something, they don't even hear you. The word just, and then hits the floor. So, but there is hope. Because if I, as a 40-something-year-old adult, can do that, you can get your kids off the spectrum as well.
And we coach in GAPS and in medical medium, but I want you to know that the medical medium has done way more for Mark. I'm going to say GAPS did a whole lot for him, but he kept having regressions, and he wasn't making any more new discoveries by the time we started medical medium, and medical medium has been amazing.
Well, and it has been, because getting rid of the heavy metals, I was able to communicate with a singular intent. In other words, my intent fully came across instead of being confused. And Michelle knows exactly what I mean by that. And so the GAPS diet, the first 2 years or so of the GAPS diet, I saw major gains.
Major gains.
But after that, they considerably slowed. So then when we got to the medical medium diet in January of 18 this year, I started seeing more gains. And I'm happy to have seen those gains because I'm better able to communicate now. I'm also feeling more now. So that I find that interesting. Well, fascinating, not just interesting, absolutely fascinating. Because it makes life very interesting now instead of two-dimensional like a cartoon, black and white cartoon when I was autistic. Okay, anything else we want to...
Any questions? Thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah.
Heather, Pamela,
and
Aunt Lila.
Aunt Lila and Allison.
Allison.
Yay! Thanks for being here, guys. If you guys have any questions, though, let us know. We'll hang on for a couple of minutes.
He's checking. I think they're all here, though.
Okay.
I don't think there are any questions, so should we log off?
Yeah, we can. We're going to go ahead and log off now, guys. But below the post, below our Facebook Live, if you want to put a question down there, we'll answer it in the posts. So thanks for watching, and
see you next week.
Next week at the same time, same bat channel.
Okay, bye.
See y'all later.